Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of StarSound Speaks, episode 223. This is Irlianna Samsara of StarSound Astrology, and I'm so delighted because we have with us Rachel Rawlings. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited for many reasons. This broadcast is going to be about the archetype of Sagittarius. So it's general information, and we're going to share some cool stories. We're going to share all kinds of things about the Sag archetype in astrology, what it is, what it represents, famous people who are Sagittarius sun, some really cool stories that I have from my personal life. And also, we're going to talk about the high road of Sag and then the shadow side. So we really see it all from every angle. We'll also probably take a trip through the zodiac. So wherever Sagittarius rules, whatever house it rules, what kind of qualities and characteristics that brings to your life. And so with that, I just wanted to just say I'm so excited because, yes, Rachel, this is your YouTube debut. Everyone, round of applause. It's like, here's the Leo, right? I am like the promoter. Everyone is a rock star in my world, you know. But she is a very humble, virtuous writer and astrologer, an awesome astrologer. Rachel and I went through Nightlight Astrology together, and it was a wonderful ride. We have a great connection. She's not only a practicing astrologer, Hellenistic and traditional astrology, but she also studies yoga, and she weaves the yoga philosophy into her work. She also writes on medium.com under Astrology Rhapsody, and I will link that below for you guys so you can check out her writing. It's awesome. I also want to say shout out when you book your reading with Rachel. Don't you love that? Yes, of course. This is a Sag episode. We are thinking big and abundant. Where you can reach her is rachel@kismetediting.com. And Rachel's like melting into her chair right now. So it's okay, Rachel. I'll stop here. So anyway, so hopefully that's a decent introduction. But so let's have fun. Let's talk about Sagittarius. So Sagittarius, mutable. It's one of the mutable signs. It's a fire sign. You know, it has to do with higher mind, knowledge, occult wisdom. You know, for those of you who are new to astrology and new to the channel, you know, we're doing each of these archetypes on a monthly basis. And so the one for Sag, you know, we're talking higher mind, optimism, confidence, all the largesse of life. And so anything you wanted to say about that, Rachel, that comes to mind, you know, like being a mutable fire sign or...
I think about the duality of the sign and it coming at just before the winter solstice, right before the beginning of winter, the darkest part of the year, the handover of light. When we move from the dark part of the year into the light part of the year. And I think about it as being a Jupiter ruled sign and bringing in the significations of Jupiter.
Yeah, like in the approaching darkness, it's like here's the hope and the optimism and the confidence that like things will come around again, and just when things look really dark, yeah,
the light is returning.
They come
sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
Oh, and as far as Jupiter too, in the order of the Chaldean order, falling between Mars and Saturn, between those signs, Jupiter is also known as being a mediator or legislator between, as one of the significations, but I also like to think of that as between the two malefics as well.
Right, that's a good point. And if you could just explain the Chaldean order, because you know, a lot of people were still transitioning into traditional astrology, and you could just explain, you know, what that is. I can, as you're talking, I'll pull up a picture of it on the on my screen here. I'll go pull up the Chaldean order. Chaldean order for 100, please.
It's the celestial scheme in traditional astrology, and the order of the planets based on the relative speed from Earth, I believe. And so the center is the sun, and then below the sun we have Venus, Mercury, and the moon. And then above the sun, we have Mars and Jupiter and Saturn.
Yes, thank you. I found a open image. Let me grab this image here and I can show everybody because we love pictures. So there's the Chaldean. Here's an ancient, you know, beautiful from antiquity, you see from the writing. Luna, there's the, you know, the fastest, like you said, in terms of speed. The moon, of course, moves the fastest. Luna, Mercury, Venus, Solus, that's the sun. Martis, Mars, Jovis, Jove, right? Jupiter, and then Saturn. And so, of course, we don't see the outer planets because, of course, in the traditional system, it only goes, the traditional 7, right, goes up to Saturn. That was the last planet that people could see with the naked eye, you know, in the ancient, you know, what was that?
The limits, the boundary.
Right.
Yeah.
Saturn, right. And I love how you just said that it's really interesting because everything tells a story. I really love that. I got so much out of Nightlight. I mean, oh my God, it was such a life-changing experience of astrology because we're getting these deeper looks at things and how important it is that what's visual is itself a symbology and a story. Like what you just said, Rachel, about Jove or Jupiter being the mediator between the two malefics, the two planets that have the least light and have, you know, in symbolically are the ones that can challenge us and, you know, even cause trouble. But Jupiter being that, I think about Zeus or Jove, you know, and he was like the great judge and he would throw down his lightning bolt if he was pissed off and, you know.
Right, the greater benefic as well, of abundance. And I like the idea of the Sages I know just have a talent for speaking, for being able to talk to anybody and having stories and being able to bring sides together.
Yes, I have a dear friend who is no longer on the earth plane, but she is here with us now because I called her in and she was an amazing Sag like that. And I mean, you could throw her into any room and she could just chat it up with anybody. And, you know, it helped that she had Gemini rising at 29 degrees, definitely helped. But the opposite poles of, but yeah, she was like a classic example of, and the optimism too. It's like, you know, hey, you know, our car ran out of gas and we have a flat. Oh, don't worry, we're gonna, you know, don't. Yes. I have a solution, right?
Right. Hopeful. Yeah.
They're always trying to fix things, right? I can fix this. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I also think of the sign of the archer and just the arrows and just all the forward movement and just the interest in scattering those among different I don't know, different things, you know. There's always so much hope and so much interest in different things in
right. But the archer pointing the arrow and shooting it to the sky, like the sky's the limit. There is nothing that can get in our way. You know, right. And yeah, it's so beautiful.
Like the action and then the thinking.
Right, the action and the thinking. And you know, caution to the wind. You know, I'm here. I'm big. Go big. What is that? Go big or go home. You know, that can be a Sag thing. When you think about the size of, I'm going to pull up as we speak. I will pull up a picture of the size of Jupiter. Oh my God, Jupiter is the largest, as many of us know. It's the largest planet in the solar system, and it's enormous. Let me see planet sizes compared to Earth. Yeah, the Jupiter compared to the Earth. Here's a great picture. I got one for you guys. Check this out. Okay, let me pull this up. Well, let me show you this one. Look at that. Look at the difference. Oh my God. There's our moon, there's Earth, and there's, right? So when Jupiter is in your life, you know, when you get a Jupiter transit, that's a big deal, as you can, literally a big deal. It has the greatest magnetic pull too. And that's very much like the Jupiterian personality. very magnetic. If you think about Jupiter being associated with kings and people of prestige and wealth, and and it's like, come here, like the king. You don't tell the king to come to you, you come to the king, and it's like, so yeah, Jupiter, I love him.
And I remember was it our teacher Adam Ellenboss saying that in Sagittarius, they having a moral mission tames their foolhardy character, working towards something redeeming. So they might, being associated with the sign of the my words, the centaur, and
The
kind
centaur.
of the reckless nature of the centaur, but having that Jupiter, the moral compass will always come through, as having something to aim for, something that redeems that character.
Yes, it's very much infused with the archetype is doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they may be a little overreaching, but they mean well. What is that thing? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. No, I don't know if that's so sad, but that's just something that came to mind. Too, I was going to talk about famous celebrities who have, well, first let's talk about the high, so the positive attributes, and then we'll talk about the negative attributes. So positive attributes, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think about Sag energy?
There's just a welcoming kindness I found with the Sages that I've known.
Oh, that's beautiful. A welcoming kindness. Oh, I think of the optimism. Yeah, like just cheerful optimism, the can-do attitude, self-improvement, like, yeah, confidence for sure. A big spender, I got that. Wealth, it's associated with material wealth and spiritual wealth too. Higher wisdom.
I admire their ability from the ones that I've known just to be themselves. The quirkiness just comes out, and that's okay.
Right. Yeah, and so the kind of, the difficult part of when you are that magnanimous, and obviously there's, for me, I think of what we have to manage wherever part of our chart we have Sag is where we have to manage, overdoing it, over compromising, or be overextending ourselves, that overreaching.
Yeah, and I think about Mercury's detriment is in Sagittarius as well. And thinking of one person in particular right now, he always has something to say about everything, but that often comes, and then the thought comes later, and then the foot goes in the mouth, like, oh, sorry. Not really meaning to hurt anyone, but sometimes things that are said are inappropriate, but it's always, it's not in manner to hurt anyone. He's just very kind. It just comes out.
Right. I also think about like arrogance or entitlement is when it's not in a person who's maybe not as self-actualized, it can, and in that area of their life, having not being refined, would come across as arrogant. The blind spot maybe where people have to watch out for is that kind of entitlement. I think too, like the USA chart, if you look at the Sibley chart, the USA chart has Sagittarius rising at 12 degrees 21 minutes, and when that perception that foreigners have around Americans, like, oh, they're spoiled or they're entitled, and well, it certainly gave us a very wealthy country, the land, the size of the land, it's huge. And you think about like Israel's the size of New Jersey, and Texas is bigger than France. We're dealing with a Jupiterian country here, right? It's huge. And but also like that arrogance can be, or even like religious arrogance with Jupiter ruling organized religion. And it's like,
Mhm.
you know, Puritans coming over and going, oh, well, we know we're going to convert the Indians, you know, we're so zealous, and that's that Jupiterian zealousness. But, you know, we're going to fix things like, oh, you shouldn't be your native, you know, spiritual self. You have to do it our way, you know. And so, you know, I can see where that shadow, you know, at least in the United States, with, if we look at the Sibley chart being the chart. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's also a dual nature too, right? So some of them might be a more extreme on one end, but maybe more of a cynic on the other. Have you found that with any Sagittarians in your life?
Being cynic on the other end. I don't know. I never thought about that. Have you found people like that?
Maybe like maybe not believing in astrology, you know, being open-minded and reaching in that, but then being cynical on some things that they just don't believe to be true.
Yeah. Yeah, I can get that for sure. So what about I was going to say too that I have some well, let's go to some celebrities. Let's do that one.
Okay.
Famous celebrities. When I looked up was well, Brad Pitt. It was you know, there's a hunky there's a hunky example. Taylor Swift is a Sag. You know, you can I who else? Let me go. Where was my screen? I gotta find my screen.
I had notes, Sun and Sagittarius people of Walt Disney, Bruce Lee, and Tina Turner.
Oh, okay. Tina Turner for sure. You could definitely, and Walt Disney, that you know, that whole Magic Kingdom right there, you know, kingdom and magic and joy and exuberance and, you know, everything that he stood for. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Let me see who else is a Sag celebrity. Hold on just a second here. I closed my page and I should have kept it open. Sagittarius celebrities. Sagittarius celebs. Oh, Jamie Foxx is one. There's Scarlett Johansson, Lucy Liu, Janelle Monáe, Chrissy Teigen. Yeah, we get a Tyra Banks, the supermodel. Samuel, what was the guy? He was in Pulp Fiction. What's his name? The actor. Oh gosh, I'm blanking out. I'm seeing his picture, but yeah. Well, we're getting an idea about who's in that. Oh, Jay-Z. Jay-Z is definitely a Sag. You know, yeah, and Tyra Banks. I mean, she's wow, what a fab example. Nicki Minaj too, for all you Gen Zers. Nicki Minaj, man, she's your Sag girl. You know, talk about bold and beautiful and confident. Huge, hugely no shrinking violet, these Sag sons. And so then I would say, you know, I have to say too, the one of the other things I wanted to jumping around here in the true Sag fashion, where in medical astrology, you know, Sag rules the liver and, you know, the hips, the thighs, the liver, so we can see the Sag archetype not just through the sun and one's personality and life path, but also medically where it relates. So it's that kind of middle region of the body, the hips, thighs, liver, but it also rules the brain and the circulation. And so it's interesting about the hips. And I think about the horse, you know, like horses, because it's a centaur symbol. The centaur had the horse body, the guy with the little horsey legs. and the horse, you know, I know this sounds so crazy, but a friend, one of the first people who taught me astrology about 20 years ago, she pointed something out to me, and I never forgot this, and it has to do with Sag, so I'm going to bring it up. She said that she said we were talking about a third person that we both knew, and who was a Sag sun, and she said, "Did you ever notice?" She said, "She's such a Sag. You ever notice how she walks into a room? She walks like she has this gait like a horse." It sounds crazy, but and when I was with this person, I observed her and I'm like, oh my God, you're right. It's like the set of even the set of her hips. It was like,
Huh.
it sounds weird, but it's like horse hips and like the way, I don't know, the way the horses move and the gait. And
Yeah.
she like marched into, she even imitated her. She like marched into the room like with this horse gait. And I'm
Huh.
like, gosh, that's crazy. But
Amazing.
then what I found was years later, a close friend of mine who's also a Sag, she has the same gait. And my dad, who was a Sag, he had the same gait. I watched him one day when I came into an off an airplane, and he was walking ahead of me at the airport, and I noticed his gait. And I was like, oh my God, that's the same as my two friends. And they all walk. Isn't that crazy? You know, it's like how you can see these things.
Wow, I'm gonna have to pay more attention to that now.
Yeah, watch how they walk, like this horse
Completely.
thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's really fascinating how it can permeate all of these areas from medical astrology to, you know, how we walk and who we are, and you know, it just covers the gamut. You had said something earlier too about the significator of Jupiter, or I don't know if it's Jupiter or Sag itself. Jupiter, of course,
Oh,
being
Jupiter. Yeah.
ruling planet.
Oh, because I'm also taking Adam Ellenboss's horary class right now. And so one thing we learned in that class is that Jupiter is a signifier for sperm. So yeah.
And that makes sense when you think about the arrow, right? It's that
Right. Fertility.
the symbology of the arrow and
Exactly.
fertility, right?
Fertility. It's a fertile sign. Jupiter is a fertile planet. And Zeus had many children, right?
Yes, he had many affairs. He got around, that Zeus.
He got around.
He was always chasing one woman or another, and this, that, and the other. And yeah, he had a lot of kids. Yeah, that's fascinating that the sperm is a significator when you see if the position of Jupiter or Sag in the chart.
Well, I mean, thinking of a horary chart, I wouldn't want to compare that to natal because I haven't studied that, but yeah.
Right, yeah. The horary.
When you look at a horary chart, yeah, it is one thing we look at.
In case people don't know what horary is, could you just explain that too?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So horary is of the hour, and it's a type of divination in astrology that answers a question. So a chart is cast for the moment that the astrologer understands the question. And then in the chart is an answer. It's an amazing system, how the planets can speak. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. Cool. Yeah. How about we finish this up by talking about a trip through the zodiac. I know all you guys love that so much. So if you have Sag, we're going to go from the 1st to the 12th house. And if you have Sag rising or Sag, or i.e. also known as Sag ruling your first house, you know, what that looks like. And we'll just kind of briefly touch upon each one of the houses. Sag rising.
Sag rising, appearance, outward personality, character.
Right. Magnanimous, confident, overly confident. Could be a little bossy. We forgot that was another shadow thing. Bossiness. My dad, he was a Sag. Oh yeah, definitely bossy. Can also be a little scatterbrained when you think about the arrow. The Sag wants to check everything out. Brand new shiny object. Oh, let's go over there. And then, oh, wait a minute, look at that. And it's like, I have 20 runways open. Okay, but you only need one to take your plane and fly.
Right.
So I think that because the first rules of personality, it can certainly indicate that. Second house, Sag ruling the second house.
Right. So second house, we'd be considering money, possessions, or things we value, those things that go to support the person.
Right. So the Sag in the second could be, we might have a tendency to spend too much on ourselves or overvalue ourselves, or it could be a little arrogance around that, our personal possessions or our what's important to us. But the good news is, of course, very, very confident, very optimist related material wealth, spiritual wealth being very important to us. A third house, the third house, Sag ruling the third house. Makes for a great PR person.
Sure does.
That,
Yeah.
that was me. I had a career. I have Saturn in the third. I had a career in PR for years. So yeah,
Amazing. I love how that comes through.
hopefully in a good way. What were you
Yeah.
going to say about the
Well,
third?
I was gonna say that the third house can represent siblings, communication, our local neighborhood, short distance travel. Yeah. But yeah, but it could also expand into career, like you mentioned, when that ties in with other places of the chart.
Right, right. Oh yeah, because I had Saturn there. Um, but yeah, the and early education or youth, like elementary school, elementary and middle school, that would be a third house thing too. Fourth house, ruling the home and one's roots, one's genealogy.
Mhm.
Um,
Foundation. Mhm.
Definitely like a really nice looking home, I would say, generally speaking. Yeah.
Yeah, could be, or fortune maybe in home. It all goes back to the condition of Jupiter in the chart, wouldn't it? Though, I mean, I wouldn't want to just say somebody with Sagittarius in the fourth is going to have this amazing home. I mean, it might depend on other conditions in the chart too.
Yes. Yes, it always, these are just very generalized indicators, but yes, all of these goes without saying depends upon the condition of your Jupiter. Is it retrograde? Is he in exile or fall? And that will definitely color these things and mitigate and but give it a much clearer picture. What houses Jupiter rules, where is Jupiter placed natally, so it's definitely layers. Yeah. But the
Right.
fourth house rules the family and the home and mother and one's roots. So Sag on that fourth house cusp would speak to this sense of optimism and abundance and largesse, and or not, depending on the condition of Jupiter, like Rachel said,
Mhm.
around the home.
Mhm.
Fifth house.
Fifth house. Yeah, we move into creativity, romance,
Right? Love affairs, romance,
right?
kids,
Kids, right, right.
fertility,
Hmm.
creative projects, and yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I have. Well, I'll skip. That's, I was gonna. It's hard for me to come up with uh, um, like my words today are escaping me. I have Sagittarius in the 12th, so I have to dig in pretty deep.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Well,
you are the expert of that
what
house.
I'm gonna say.
That's okay. That's cool. I was thinking, I mean, this is kind of randy, but if there's a guy that has Sag on his fifth, I mean, I've known guys that have Sagittarius ruling their fifth house, and they're like, it's like the Bill Clinton thing, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, gets around. We'll just be polite here, and is a ladies' man.
Oh yeah.
It can definitely indicate that. All right, sixth house. Sixth house for work and service and humility and being an employee, and maybe you're the enthusiastic employee that is kind and generous and optimistic about helping others, and one's daily routine could be infused with all of those qualities.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it's also a house of illness too, right?
Right,
Uh,
health and illness, right. So there might be some, especially when you think about liver and hips, thighs, liver, and like that. And of course, you look to the ruler and where Jupiter is placed, and Jupiter also rules, excuse me, Pisces. So all of those start to get tied in. Yeah,
right.
sixth house. All right, seventh. We're up to the seventh house already. We're coming toward that 12th, Rachel.
Well, I was gonna say too, like just backing up for a second, the sixth house is also the joy of Mars, and Mars can be of service. And we were talking about Jupiter and wanting to be Jupiter. The Jupiterians I know are very they can be very service oriented. They want to help and contribute. So that could be.
Yes, they do. So they can, with like that industrious Mars get it done energy. Yeah, it can definitely do that. Do some great stuff there.
Yeah. Okay, so seventh house.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, one-to-one relationships, marriages, partnerships, in the seventh house.
Could be maybe having a foreign husband. I've seen that with clients. Somebody who's they met overseas, or they could have a foreign spouse or business partner, or some collaborations that are international, because that's one thing we didn't mention. How did I forget that? The international factor, because Sag rules long distance travel, or foreign cultures, foreigners travel, foreign travel, immigrants, things like that. Yeah, so there could be that international flavor, that far reaching, yeah, quality that is applied to the marriage house and the house of collaborations. Seventh is also the house of open enemies, if I right. Yeah,
Right.
house of open
Yeah.
enemies.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Place of wisdom and higher education, not the place of, but as far as Jupiter significations to representing a partner or one-to-one relationships.
eighth house.
Eighth house, other people's resources, letting go. It's but not, I don't know, I always have trouble finding words for this. But it's not always financial resources, right? It could be other things that possibly that we receive from others that might not be material or financial in nature.
Right, shared resources. I loved how Adam described it in our course. He said that it can also speak to like the agreements and like the soul agreements or soul bonds that we have with each other. Like not necessarily what we owe financially, like debts, or, of course it can refer to, annuities, trust funds, and investors' money, and, venture capital, or, wills and estates and inheritances. It can be all that, but it can also be this, the soul agreements, the soul bonds that we have, that what we owe others in this lifetime, or what others owe us. I always thought that was really fascinating. That's why I loved ancient astrology so much. It's really rich, all these delineations. They're like yummy.
Yeah, I like that too. But then it can also go back to the material, right? Because if you're doing a derivative house, it'd be the second from the seventh would be the resources of that.
Right, derivative houses.
So it could be both. Yeah. I've also heard it as a place. I mean, have you heard this too, of a place of anxiety within ourselves?
Yeah, kind of like it is a tricky one, that eighth house, to describe, because it's this in ancient astrology, as we know, it's where it's one of the difficult houses. It's not an easy house. The 8th and the 12th are like the two, or second, 6th, 8th, 12th, but 8th and 12th, 8th is death in terms of like what is setting, and it's like the sun is beginning to set and you're losing light. And right. So it's like, oh, what do I need to do as I settle into like letting go of the light as the sun sets? And it's like, Patrick Watson had a great, gosh, I loved it. I have it right here. I'd love to read it. He is Patrick Watson, for those of you who don't know, is a wonderful ancient astrologer, and he has this he wrote beautifully, very poetically and deeply about each of these houses. He in the ancient astrology, they call the 8th the idle place, or the house of losing. And so here's one of the things he said. It's in a wheel, so I'm trying to, like, my head is like tilted here. He says here, it signifies conditions, places, and people following and surrounding death. The veil of death is near, impossible to see past. The sun is here during the evening rush hour. This is what I love about it. When the glare of the sun can be dangerous to drivers anxious to return home before dark. And so it's very, yeah, so it, you know, it has that kind of ominous, you know, feeling. But of course, the other side of that too is when we face that darkness and all, it's like we are letting go, we're being reprogrammed into something else. So I think about shared resources representing the eighth house. It's like you're merging life and energy with the infinite. So yeah, it's an interesting, so Sag in that, to get back to that, Sag in that eighth house, it imbues all those Jupiterian qualities. The higher, I think about higher wisdom, spirituality, and the occult and the esoteric spiritual principles that are, you know, very much at play with those energies about life and death and reprogramming. I don't know, that's just what I came up with. How does that sound?
That's beautiful. I'm still captured by the glare on the windshield as the sun is setting. That visual is just so descriptive of what that is.
Yeah, especially when because it is in aversion to the ascendant. That's why the ancients, of course, just said it was a difficult house, because it's a blind spot. It's like you can't see that little, just like you can't see when you're driving in the sun at that sunset time. Yeah, it's a challenge.
Right.
But yeah, that's eighth house for you. All right, we spent too much time.
Moving on.
Moving on. Move to the ninth. We're getting to that 12th.
Yeah, okay. So ninth house could be faith, philosophy, religion. It's where we put astrology. Did I say higher education already?
No. Now you did. And the house of God, and the ancients called it the house of God.
The house of God, joy of the sun, long distance travel in relation to pilgrimages.
Spiritual, right? Spiritual pilgrimages and retreats, and
right.
I love that.
And the law is there, I believe.
And the law, right? Rights, judicial, of course, you know, when you think about criminal justice or the rights of people, lawyers fighting for rights. Yeah, that Sag on that ninth house makes it, generally speaking, would definitely point to some kind of law, or you know, I have clients who are lawyers that are, you know, they have a very prominent ninth house for obvious reasons.
Right.
Yeah. So that's Sag on the ninth. That desire for justice, for sure. Okay, 10th house. 10th house is the top of the chart.
The top of the chart, right. Career, reputation, public status. Sometimes it can be mother, where the fourth house can be parents or father, but sometimes the 10th house can also represent mother.
It does for me, that's for sure.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
So it's a visible place. It's on the top of the chart. It's, you know, the outer world, place of achievement.
Right, regarding all the Sag matters, spirituality, abundance, material wealth. It can indicate that kind of a family lineage. Spiritual and or religious, or well, some kind of wealth and abundance, or prestige, like that. Yeah. So that was 10th. Okay, 11th house, the joy of Jupiter. So that's friends and wishes and hopes and dreams, and one's community, one's peers, or shared group experiences, like a tribe or a spiritual community. So yeah, Sag ruling that house. If you have Sag ruling your 11th, you know, very oriented, I would think, you know, a real opening and a real magnanimous, right? It's a greater benefic. So there's this huge pull, perhaps, to be those themes around family and you know, spiritual family and tribe, and all of those really come into play.
Yeah, and goals and aspirations. I just see the arrows, right?
Right. And self-improvement, right? And taking place within the realm of friends and associates, and yeah, it takes place in that area of life. All right, what about the 12th? Drum roll.
Oh boy, another dark house, right?
It's a dark house. Yes, but you said
Blind
ruling
spot.
that. What is that like for you?
Well, the 12th can be a place of solitude, um, restriction. It can be our blind spot, self-sabotage. You described it one day as a shipwreck.
Shipwrecked. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. So what is it like for me? Gosh, I don't know. I feel like I'm on the spot. I have Mars there too. So I really think of Mars when I have Mars in the 12th as opposed to being a Jupiter ruled sign. But
You're a
uh
spiritual warrior that's hidden away that the world can't see.
yeah, that's it. Thanks for finding my words for me. Yeah,
No.
I mean, I enjoy my solitude, even though it's a 12th house of Jupiter.
So the expansion is on the inner planes, in that can be I would think, with like that hermity kind of.
Right. Right, but still like my freedom, freedom of thought, freedom of action, movement. Even though it is tucked away there in the
Tucked
corner of
away.
my heart.
I love it.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Well, that was cool. Thank you for taking that trip to through the zodiac, and thank you just all in all for being here and helping us, unpack what that looks like, Sagittarius in the zodiac signs.
Oh, thank you for having me. This was I like to hide behind the scenes, and so being on YouTube, oh my God.
It's like, ah!
I know exactly. Maybe next time the words will come a little easier to me. They're just kind of hiding back here. But yeah, it was a
Oh,
lot of fun. It was a
I
lot of
thought it was. I thought
fun.
you're wonderful. No, yeah, no, it's great. I'm so glad. Yay, your first podcast. But I really appreciate you being here and sharing with us all that cool wisdom. So again, if you want to read Rachel's writing, that is medium.com, Astrology Rhapsody on medium.com, and Rachel@kismetediting.com is her email address. So any questions, bookings, anything. She also is an editor for some very key astrology publications. So wonderful, right? Writing is your passion. Writing and
Writing and editing as opposed to speaking. But I'm getting there. I'm working on it.
I think you're doing great. Yay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, everybody. Well, we hope you enjoyed that, and let us know any comments, questions, shares below. We love hearing from you. Like, share, subscribe is always appreciated. And we will see you all next time. Thank you so much for listening. This is Irlianna Samsara, StarSound Speaks, StarSoundastrology.com. Namaste.